Hi, my name is Sahar Azarabadi. I am a former board member of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of the ICF, and I am thrilled to be with James Flaherty, founder of New Ventures West. He's also co-founder of Integral Leadership LLC and the author of Coaching, Evoking Excellence in Others, which is widely recognized as a seminal text in the field of coaching. James developed the methodology known as integral coaching by integrating recent discoveries in linguistics, developmental psychology, 20th century philosophy, biology, and other disciplines. He designed New Ventures West's programs, trains its faculty, and has led coaching and leadership courses involving thousands of people around the world. In addition to being a voracious reader, I've been witness to this, he practices yoga and Qigong. He's a Zen student studying with Norman Fisher of Everyday Zen, and he enjoys travel and loves to spend time with his adult daughter and her friends. James, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. I don't know if you've ever been introduced that way, but it's kind of funny to sit through. But I understand what we're doing.
Right, absolutely. So, I'm also a certified integral coach. I have gone through the New Ventures West program. And so I wonder if you might be able to share a little bit about the ethos of New Ventures West around the kind of essential philosophy behind your methodology.
Yeah, some of the main notions are that that it's important in coaching to understand the full person. Mm-hmm. And not try to segment a part of the person off. So sometimes coaching can be about what the client, or what some people call the coachee, I refer to call the client, the person being coached. Their goals are segmenting that part off, or some coaching schools segment off the person's belief systems, or segment off their behavior, or segment off even their body, leaving out their emotions and their intelligence and so on. So our notion is that the first step is to understand the person in front of us as completely as we can, which of course is a huge order, because human beings are super complex. We live in many different layers, from our social self to our essential self, to what we're fulfilling from the past, to what we're attempting to bring about in the future, to dealing with what's in front of us at the moment. We have all of our individual qualities. We also have the way we've been socialized. We have the pressures that are on us in the moment. We have the ways our nervous system shapes us, the way the language that we speak shapes us, on and on and on and on. Plus, we're alive, which means we're changing all the time. We're flowing. We're a complex, nonlinear system, unpredictable in many ways. So that's the first part. And then, do we have a response that's just as robust as our understanding? Mm-hmm. As you said, I read a lot of books, and I would say fully 85% of the books I read are nonfiction books, are fabulous at describing the difficulty, like climate change, or social inequity, or the trouble with our prison system. Fabulous discussions about how difficult it is, but terrible in responding to it. So our method is to have a robust understanding and a robust response to the person. Also, that I'll just say a couple more things. One is, we take it that the way the coach is with the client is really important. We, in a way, take this up from Chinese medicine. I don't know how much Chinese medicine you've studied, but in Chinese medicine, right. So in Chinese medicine considers that the condition of the physician has a super salutary effect on the patient. Mm. The word that we bandy about everywhere in the Bay Area these days of resonance, that resonates with me, or you resonate with me. This is what the Chinese were onto this for about 4,000 years, that the quality of life in the physician resonates with the body of the patient and starts them towards harmonizing, integrating, and healing. So we take the condition of the coach in the session, be it in person or on a video conference like we're doing today, or on the phone, in whatever format, to be essential. It's not neutral. I don't think there's such thing as a coach not having any effect. The idea that the coach is just going to just be here without affecting the client flies in the face of how our human nervous system, that's essentially social, is constructed. And the fourth thing I'd say is that we are aimed at, and you've heard us say this a million times in our PCC, our mission is to lessen human suffering.
Right.
That it doesn't matter what our status is in the world, we have a kind of suffering. And some of it is, of course, extremely brutal. Those of us humans who can't find food, or can't find water, or can't find a way to take care of our children, there's that brutal nature of suffering. But there's also the suffering of not having meaning in our life, or not feeling like I'm contributing, or not feeling like I belong anywhere. So the whole range, all the different forms of suffering, our method is designed and intended to address. So of course, as you know, I could talk for 20 hours in your question. Let's stop there.
I appreciate that. Part of what you were saying in the beginning reminded me of when I first came across New Ventures West, which was at the Wisdom Conference. And I sat down with an integral coach, and I was looking for a coaching program, and I didn't actually know what I was looking for, but I knew it when I experienced it. So to your point, I was seen in a way that I really felt like I had never been seen before. And it was touching, and it was liberating, as you said. And as soon as I had that experience, I said, oh yeah, I want to be able to do that for other people as well. So it's a little bit of what I was remembering.
It's so important to be able to be quiet and sensitive enough as a coach to meet the client that's in front of us.
Right.
And be able to appreciate them in all their wonder and beauty and depth. And then let that go, so the next time they arrive, we meet them in their own wonder and depth and beauty on that day. That's going to be slightly different than when we saw them a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
Absolutely. I wonder if you might be able to say a little bit more about what you just pointed out around the books being able to articulate kind of what isn't happening in the world, and the little bit of how we can maybe move forward, or the little bit that you were pointing to. I wonder if you can kind of elaborate on that.
So I want to be sure I'm answering your question, responding to your question. So is your question, how can we respond to the conditions in the world? Or how would you say it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
One of the main things is, can we tolerate being in the world the way that it is right now? That's where it starts. So many of us, even though we've been reading for a long time, and people have been telling us the world is changing. The world is changing. It's getting more complex. It's unpredictable. And we go, yes, yes, yes. And then suddenly it becomes unpredictable, and we go crazy. Like, what? How come someone didn't tell us this? We are at a place where the complexity of the situation that we're in, there's so many people, there's so many systems, there's so many resources, there's so many different agendas, that are the systems that we have to deal with the complexity don't fit very well anymore.
Right.
So that means that it's important for us to become competent in the world that's in front of us. But it starts, as I said, with being able to face it.
Mm-hmm.
As I've been telling people, yes, we got it, it's terrible. We probably don't need, I claim we don't need any more people complaining about how terrible it is and how crazy our political leaders and economic leaders and scientists and so on are. Yes, we got it. Now, can we stay in the heartbreak of that? Can we stay in the disappointment of that? Can we stay in the frustration of it? Can we stay in the anger, whatever our emotional response is, or whatever our somatic response is, or whatever thoughts we have about it, and conclusions and judgments? Can we stay in the middle of it without being debilitated?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the first step, and that takes vigilance every day, how we live.
Right.
Can we keep coming to life freshly each day, not fighting yesterday's battles or being mad at what happened last year, but freshly dealing with the person in front of us, the situation right in front of us. That's one.
Right.
The second is the ability to generate genuinely fresh possibilities is paramount right now.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, in our school, we have a book study group, and last night we were talking to quite an amazing woman, Adrienne Maury Brown, who works with social activists around the States, working with many seminal issues. And one of the most important parts of her work, which she reminded us of, is being in conversations with people to generate new possibilities.
Mm.
So are we in a network of people who are generative, creative, and can we contribute to that community?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the second part. Can we stay with it? Then can we generate possibilities? And then can we be patient enough for their unfoldment? Can we notice and appreciate and celebrate little changes that are happening? Or are we all or nothing? If I can't stop social inequity, then what's the point? Or if I can't stop Black children from being killed by police, then what's the point? Or if I can't stop the oceans from being polluted, then why even start?
Mm-hmm.
We're not assured at the beginning of any outcome.
Mm-hmm.
But can we stay with it, persist, and as I said, notice each incremental improvement or each situation that's slightly better? So I think that's a start anyway.
Yeah. This is bringing to mind that in the beginning of our year-long professional coaching course, the first segment of that is really about the personal development of the coach. Mm-hmm. And what we call developing the body of a coach.
Right.
So I wonder if you might say a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's in all three of the things that I just said. Right. So the first, can I stay with it? Can I stay in the world without saying, well, I just have to not read the news or talk to anybody who's read the news or be around anybody who's talked to anybody who's read the news? Can we stay in the world mm-hmm. without being overwhelmed by it? That's having the body, the mind, the heart of a coach. And then being able to generate possibilities, which means we have to cultivate an openness and a serenity and a mood of possibility within us, which is, again, having the body of a coach, the mind of a coach, the heart of a coach. Mm-hmm. And then persistence. One of the big developmental steps that happens as coaches move along is having a wider, longer, deeper horizon of time. Mm-hmm. We are, of course, it's it's just such a common trope these days to say that we're impatient, that technology is speeding up to such an extent that if we have to wait 15 seconds for our computer to turn on or 30 seconds for our money to come out of this machine, our life is,
Right.
we have a legitimate right to complain. So stepping back from that and having more persistence, more patience, learning as we go, all that again is, as you so well said, the body of a coach, the mind of a coach, the heart of a coach. Why we so much focus on the body of a coach is our body is responding and reacting in the background, that we don't even notice it. Most of us think we are our thoughts.
Right.
We have thoughts in our head and we identify with those, but meanwhile, our brain is producing those thoughts that come to us. It's in our body. As you know, some people say, there's a brain and then there's the body, except of course that in every case that I've coached people, and I hope this is true for you, the brain has been in the body. So brain chemicals, neurochemicals are affecting the body, but also just to say one thing though, the hormones that the body produces affects the brain. They're in a feedback loop. So our thoughts are just the surface of what's going on with us. The more profound aspect of our understanding and our response is physiological. It's in our body. And if we don't address that, we're going to be in a very narrow range of what we can understand and how we can react to that or respond to that or be in action around it.
Right.
At first, as you know from being in the school, that sounds really strange to people, but because we think our body is like a car that we're driving around.
Indeed.
It just takes us where we want to go. But if people would just think of things like when we fall in love, what it means to fall in love is our body falls in love with someone, which we know because when we're not around our beloved, we ache. It isn't just, I have this thought. My body aches when they're not with me, or if I break up with them. And we all have the experience of in our thoughts, making a really determined plan, say, I'm going to get up tomorrow morning and really start that swimming practice. And then our body has a different agenda in the morning. The body has its own momentum, its own habits, its own range of what it can do.
Right.
And to be a coach, it's important to expand that range.
So a lot of what you've articulated differentiates us, New Ventures West, as a school. And I wonder if you might also, what's coming to mind for me is this developmental model. And I wonder if you might speak to that for the listeners who are interested in learning a little bit more about what also informs the methodology and the thinking behind integral coaching.
Yep. In the simplest way, there's two kinds of development, and it's historically called horizontal development and vertical development. So horizontal development is when we get better at a skill that we already have. And it's really important. So I could get better at cooking. I can go from being able to boil an egg, which I've passed that.
You've mastered that.
I mastered that part. Set the timer. To being able to read a recipe and then more complex recipes, and then being able to go to the store and find not just the red pepper that I need, but a red pepper that's going to be good for this recipe. So I can get better and better and better and better and better at being a cook, being a chef. And that's wonderful and important. It's horizontal development. It's getting better at a skill that I already have, or getting better at doing presentations, or any skill. Vertical is the other aspect of development, and It isn't just getting better at something that I'm already in the middle of being engaged in. Vertical development means I'm shifting, and I'll make sense of this in a moment, who I am in the moment, or in the situation, or in the relationship. So what I mean by who I am is what is possible for me to pay attention to? What is possible for me to notice? What is it possible for me to feel? How much kindness, how much compassion can I bring to this? We already spoke about how much patience can I bring to it? How much complexity can I deal with? Those are matters of development. And at first, it can seem strange to people that adults develop. So what we can clearly see this in children. So we've all been around babies, and we know that they have steps that they take. They pick up their head and they roll over, and then I have to make sure I get this order right, but something like they crawl and then they pull themselves up and then they walk and then they run and all that.
Right.
And those are totally expected. And no one gets to skip a step. So babies don't raise their heads and then start running. There's steps that are predictable and build upon one another. So the same thing happens in our development as people, even when our body stops developing, however, at whatever age, somewhere in our 20s, when our skull bones come together and our bones stop growing and all of that, still are able to build our capacity to respond, to be creative, to be present, which is a big part of development. So this is our method for being able to do the things that I spoke about in response to your first question of being able to be more fully in the situation, being able to respond more fully. It means I've taken developmental steps. Mm. So just to give you quick examples, so we have the usual level of development of our culture we call scattered, which I think the name just describes it. We feel scattered. So it's not unusual for us to be talking to anyone and suddenly they're looking at their phone, mm-hmm. or in the middle of typing something, we start reading our email, we get scattered. So it isn't just that our activities are scattered, we feel internally scattered. It's hard for us to focus. It's hard for us to make long-term plans. It's hard to see the efficacy of anything I'm doing because everything is incoherent to us. We don't see the patterns. Mm-hmm. And then there's the next level that we call dense, which is kind of the opposite in a way of being scattered. Is when we're dense, is our life is so full of things that we can't really attend to any one part of it. It's kind of like a Yogi Berra joke. I'm so busy I can't do anything. Well, we all know that. We call up our friend and say, oh, I have seen you for a long time, let's have lunch. And they say, yes, let's have lunch. How about October 12th? Right. I have from 12 to 12:15, we can get together. Our life is so packed, right, with things that we care about, things that we feel we must attend to, requests that we are responding to and so on, that we don't have room to move. Mm-hmm. And this is displayed by our usual answer in the Bay Area to the question, how are you? Which is busy. How are you? Well, busy. Or super busy, or crazy busy, or busy as usual.
Slammed.
Slammed, yes, thank you very much. Bye, slammed. I like to joke that we should start, when someone starts asking us how we are, we should start saying, I'm feeling deeply serene and spacious and calm, and I'm just seeing the beauty of each moment. Mm. What would happen when we did our check-in at our project meeting if we said that? Mm-hmm. People would start making jokes about we're smoking marijuana or something. Because the norm, and here's the point, the norm is being dense. Mm-hmm. Our culture prepares us for that. At age 5, people have play dates 5 times per week. They have right. lessons that they're taking. Parents are and caregivers are run ragged just trying to keep up with their 5-year-old's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They have to get busy now and start competing against the other children who are learning Mandarin while they're only learning Spanish. Oh no. So dense. So the breakthrough really happens at the next level that we call fluid. Because in the first two levels that I'm speaking about, being scattered or being dense, we are responding to the situation that's given to us and doing our best to cope. When we get to the level of fluid, we discover that I can invent, I can generate, I can design my own life. It's funny, even people who are, say, innovators, they think, oh, I've had enough of working for these structured companies. I'm going to be an innovator. I'm going to start my own company. And 2 weeks into that, they discover they're back at being dense. There's so many things that you're supposed to do when you're there. You have to hire people and find a site and find a product and get all the technology to work and all the funding to work. And
Mm-hmm.
So the real freedom is when I can say what's important to me. I can say what my values are. I can say what my life is going to be about. Whenever I say that, especially to an American audience, everyone says, oh, I'm already doing that. And you know, the joke is that only Americans say that.
Mm-hmm.
Only Americans say, oh, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I haven't found very many Americans say it that way, who actually live that way.
Mm.
We are keeping people in the band of dense. We are sort of shunning people who aren't busy enough. When people retire, we ask them, so what are you going to do? How are you going to fill up all your time? We, as I already said, we start with our children early on.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of taking on the task, taking on the joy, taking on the promise of being able to design our own life is very powerful. It feels like there's tons of room for us.
Mm-hmm.
We find some powers within us that have been hidden up till now. We have a different relationship with other people. We're not so attached to our view. We can take on other views. We don't have to insist on being right and having our view prevail. All of that, in fact, we are fluid. We're taking Bruce Lee's advice and being water. Because water, as you know, is always in motion. Nothing stops it for long.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, our school is about the coaches who come to our training, making developmental steps, and then learning a method so that they can do a similar kind of process with their clients, so their clients can take developmental steps.
Right. One of the things that I love about our school and the methodology is that it's constantly being informed by what's happening in the world. So it's changing and it's evolving. And perhaps this is a two-part question. And so this also leads me to kind of the depth of experience that our faculty has in the leader body. So I wonder if you might be able to just say a few words about that so listeners might be able to get a sense of the broader ecosystem.
Right. So one aspect of it is, so we have leaders from around the world. We have people who lead our classes who are living in Asia and in Africa and Europe and South America and North America. Nobody from Australia or Antarctica yet, but I'm sure somebody somewhere is working on it. So that means that there's, first of all, cultural perspectives that are different, educational backgrounds that are different. And also our leaders are deeply into all different sorts of things. Whatever the edge of psychology is, whatever the edge of spirituality is. Sometimes people think, well, spirituality happened all in the past. And that's when all the great teachers were. and we're just sort of following them. Turns out to not be the case. There are fabulous teachers right now who are starting programs, conducting schools, writing books that our faculty are connected into. Same thing with philosophy. Philosophy is not Socrates and Aristotle and Plato, maybe, I don't know, Descartes and a few other big names. Philosophy is alive and well, and helping us critically think and it gives us the ability to question the assumptions that our culture gives us and the values that our culture gives us, the way of life that our culture gives us. And not just, I don't like it, but what is the blind spot of it? What is its premises that inevitably lead to the problems that we're having? So we have lots of us faculty members, including me, who are reading in all these areas. Besides biology, and I'm sure everybody who's listening to this knows that the 90s and into the 2000s was the decades of the brain and understanding how the brain works. Mm-hmm. I'm just to give you an example, I'm reading Sapolsky's new book. Sapolsky is a biologist and a neuroscientist at Stanford who wrote, I think his book is something like, his most famous book is Why Zebras Don't Blush, which tells you a lot about him. He's kind of a prankster, but he's totally brilliant and he understands his field really deeply. So I'm reading a book called Behave, that's understanding human behavior from the microseconds right before we do something, which is brain chemicals, to the days and weeks, the hours, days and weeks ahead of time, which is hormones, to how we are raised, to back in time, to how our culture was formed, to how evolution set us up to be the way that we are. So our classes are always a rich stew of everyone that is on the faculty and what they're bringing. I'm just barely touching the tip of the iceberg, as you know, of these topics.
Right.
So we're not a rigid school in that we have an ideology and we somehow imagine that we have it all worked out. And if we would just keep teaching the same thing, that would be perfect. No. Right. Every time we lead a class, we are refining how we teach, learning better ways, sharing that with each other, and also taking up new topics that we hadn't taken up before, because we learn that something is missing in our curriculum. So I noticed in how you spoke a while ago, you spoke about a part of you. And of course, that's a common way that we speak. A part of me wants to go to the party, part of me wants to stay here and read my book. So as you know, from being around, the study of parts and what it is to be a human being as a collection of parts is part of it's an element of our culture. It's bad to say it's a part of it. You get the point. And
right.
It's always like that, which is because it's who we select to be leaders, is people who are dynamically involved in their own development, not slavishly parroting what they've heard by anyone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So in our last couple of minutes together, I wonder if you might be able to offer any kind of, to borrow David White's phrase, of offer any beautiful questions that someone might be able to ask themselves as they are evaluating different coaching programs, what might be right for them, or even coaching as a vocation, or coaching to augment what they're up to in the world. So any words of wisdom or questions that people might be able to ask themselves?
We'll see if they're wise. So I first want to make a list of bad questions. So this is me, of course, espousing my values. So I think of asking the question, how can I make the most money from being a coach? How can I do the certification that will get me to making money as soon as I can? makes coaching into a trade school, like learning to sell real estate or drill teeth or something, which is totally fine, but what we're up to is deeper than that. So I think the main question to ask anytime we're considering joining a group of any sort, from a university to a spiritual group to a yoga class to a coaching school, is what are the people like who participate here? What kind of human being comes out of this process? So I've gone to yoga classes, for example, where the whole point of the class is to get the teacher to like you. And people become really followers or fawning followers of the teacher, rather than they're becoming more integrated as people. They're becoming more sensitive in their body, more strong in their responses to life, all of that. So to me, one of the essential questions is, what kind of people does this method produce? How do they come out? And I think the question that is probably preceding to that one is two questions. One is, what's my life for? I have the bold claim that the purpose of our life is not to make ever more money so we can buy the next iteration or smartphone, or be upwardly mobile, which means I could buy a bigger house and a bigger car. And the whole purpose of my life is to do that for me and for my children. I have what I think to be the common sense notion that life, as it started on Earth, say 2+ billion years ago, was up to something more than that. So what's my life for? The subtext of that is that my life isn't for me. It isn't mine. It takes like 30 seconds to notice that our life was given to us. It's given to us by our parents, but it was also given to us by the earth, because our body is made of the earth, and given by the whole universe to us. Now what? So another way of saying that is a word you already brought up: what's our calling? What is mine to do? In our school, in my own heart, I feel like each of us has a particular something that only we can bring to life. It doesn't have to be a big thing. We don't have to be the president of a country or start a huge organization. As you know, our usual work is with the small circle of people that we get to affect. What is mine to bring to that group of my family, of my friends, of my colleagues at work? Or in the bigger world, if that's our place. So what kind of people does this process produce? What is mine to do? What's my life for? I think those are the questions, but usually we get questions like, how long does it take, and,
right.
and how much does it cost, and how big are the groups, and who are the teachers, which is,
Sure.
of course, fair game, but I don't think it will really help us make a decision that can be so changing of our entire life as this could be.
Right. So, which brings me to a couple of offers that if any of the listeners would like to ask any of those other questions about what programs are available, how they might experience New Ventures West, there's several different ways. We have intro calls. We have calls where you're able to meet the leaders of our year-long professional coaching course. People can come in as a guest client to experience what the coaching is like, similar to what I did. So there's lots and lots of opportunities. And of course, if they visit the website at newventureswest.com or send us an email at info@newventureswest.com, we're happy to be in conversation around additional details, and also the inquiry around these questions that you also offered. So I want to thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure
You're welcome. Thank you.
Conversation with you.
You're welcome. It's always fun to talk to you, and thanks for this chance.
Thank you so much.
See you next time.
Take care.